I mean, even the conditions, the adversity, the resistance you come with, and the way that you've sort of pushed through, I think I'm admiring that, Shivani. I really am, because I sit here, honestly, I do. I sit here a lot on this podcast, and I'm in shock, because I'm sort of like, what would I do in that situation? Sort of thing. Not trying to compare, but just the fact that it's so hard, right? But like what you just said there, you lost thousands and thousands.
Yeah, and like what you were talking about, like, just get up. But that was the main thing that I had to learn is I can't get up fighting. I can't get up swinging, because my body won't let me do that anymore. So how do you get up in a way that is balancing and nourishing to all aspects of who you are, that naturally results in just an inner joy, an inner contentment, and then it becomes much, much easier.
There was no sort of aggression, or it was just finding peace in that getting back up. I think it's absolutely brilliant the way that you've continued to move forwards in your life. Hey guys, are you feeling burnt out or wanting a quick break away from the daily grind? Well, our friends over at Cyro Boca Place offer the ultimate destination for those seeking a blend of luxury wellness, adventure, and restoration. If you know me, you know I'm fully invested in health and well-being. So if you don't prioritize yourself first, how are you supposed to be showing up for others around you? Looking for an experience like this, head over to www.cyrohotels.com. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Master Your Life Beyond the Boardroom. I am your podcast host, Luke Beastall, and yes, we have yet again another international guest from United States of America in Missouri, right in the central. Shivani made that very clear, Central America. But, I'm learning here, by the way. I'm learning my geography, that's for sure. But honestly, I'm super excited to delve into this story. She had gone through a dramatic transformational change in her career, invested up towards almost $50,000 into this passion that she wanted to pursue. However, life happened, okay? A massive change. She got diagnosed with Crohn's. And in that moment, she had to surrender and make sure that her health was at the forefront before going into this business venture. But we're going to open up that part of the story. We're going to get deep on it, and we're going to really share the insights and actually where this has led Shivani into her health coaching business. She's so passionate about slowing down, bringing real human life connection together, which, you know me, guys, I'm very, very passionate about that myself. I think connecting on a deeper level below the surface is what, even though there's more resources out there today, there's still a lot of disconnection going on. And that's where, again, she goes against the grain. She's got her own methodology. She's got super passionate behind it. She's very, 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 very focused on the human being. So look, Shivani, I'm really excited to have you. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Luke. I'm excited to share more and maybe inspire and enliven some people to make more satisfying choices for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you're here, because we just chatted beforehand, and obviously we've never met. Obviously, I know we'd spoken through social media. We talk about connection here, just for people to understand you just a little bit more. Before you decided, because obviously a big change to go into your own career or pursue this passion as a health coach, and then nobody wishes on anybody to sort of have anything like that happen to them. What was your life before? What was going on? What was you doing like day to day? And what brought you to think, I don't want to sort of be in this world anymore. I want to become this health coach and help others.
Yeah, so that's kind of an interesting start there. That was a longer journey. I had been a kind of spoiled housewife for a few years, and my husband was very successful. And then I had this ache inside of me. And so I kind of went down a very spiritual path. I had been doing yoga. I had even been teaching yoga as in my housewife role, just for fun. I didn't need to, but I was enjoying it. And then that took me down a spiritual path. I had learned a meditation practice, and I dove into it. So I actually dropped out of the world for a while and lived like a monk. And then that's where I ended up wanting to begin to transition, that I had done that for about 13, 14 years. And then I was ready to start diving into money again. I had had some stress around it with my ex-husband. That was like primary in his world. It was very, very money focused. And so I, like really shunned it. But then here it was awakening in me again. I wanted to address that. I wanted to dive into it and face the relationship, the feelings around money. And so there could be some of that also led to the crash that I had physically.
Yeah, so spoiled housewife, just going to that. So obviously, did you feel like yourself as a spoiled
No.
housewife? Okay, so in that era of your life, what did you feel like being a housewife?
Well, I think that in the beginning, it was very much everything that I had thought. I mean, I was the youngest of my father's girls. He had many. And he had always wanted me to be the one that was in the houses that he had worked on. It was always projected on me, but there was always a part of me that was so very independent. In my early 20s, I met the man that I was going to marry, and he became very successful. And then right away, that's when I started finding out. I was at home all the time. I have 3 children, amazing, beautiful people, but I was starting to kind of like, who am I? What am I other than,
Right.
a transportation, a maid? When I ended up moving away from that situation, it took 3 women to replace me. So there's just a lot of things that at that time I was just crumbling. I remember there was a moment when I was talking to my mom and I'm like, Mom, why did you lie to me? Why were you telling me that this was so amazing? And she's like, yeah, I remember about 25. That's when I was really mad at my mom too. And so she had just thought like, oh, this is just a growing phase. You'll get through this, but I needed more. I wasn't sure what it was, but I needed something more.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, you didn't settle. That's very clear. You moved on from it. You had that sort of power in you. I mean, there's a lot of bits there that we can go into, especially the space element, meditation, spiritual awakening stuff, which is really good. It's just so people listening can understand that life before, and you've built this dream life, and you're living through what you want to do. So for you, was there a breakdown? Was there a moment in that sort of housewife era where you was like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, and it was interesting because it started really small. Like I remember one of the first things was I just all of a sudden decided I don't ever want to drink alcohol again. I don't even know where it came from. And then when I wasn't drinking alcohol and going around with, going out on business meetings with my husband and all of those things, watching everybody else drink and
Right.
the communications that were going on. And then so that also began to lead to some challenges between he and I as I was starting to face and want to understand those feelings that I had been covering up and shoving down using alcohol and other means. They were starting to surface inside of me and they weren't inside of him. And I feel like that was a big part of the impetus inside of me that things need to change. My children was a big motivation because I just awoke to the reality that all they have around them are really poor examples of what it's like to live life,
Right.
that we're just putting masks on and pretending, and all of the internal world is being completely ignored or covered up. And so then that was like I said, that was a big motivator. I tried in our relationship with my husband to begin saying those sort of things. And then when I came to meditation, then I just knew that was opening up something, the access to those things. More of that was surfacing to my surface mind. I was able to put words to things. I was then also finding community that I could have real conversations with, where we weren't ignoring, where we weren't plastering over those sort of things. My ex-husband at the time just was not interested in touching that realm. Everything was more about continuing forward with his business and keeping the status quo because it was continuing to build for him. And that was a big dream for him.
Yeah. So you found your voice. Wow. How did that feel?
I think it was terrifying at first. I remember feeling very shaky about it, and that especially having a lot of people tell me what I was doing was wrong and that I would regret it. There were many years that they were like, are you done yet? Have you got over that? Have you soiled your wild oats or whatever? And I was like, you guys aren't seeing. There's a movie, I think it's called Stardust, where there's this little community and there's a hole in the wall and the guy goes through the hole. He meets all sorts of amazing characters and he can never really go back. And that's the thing that I was like, you guys got to watch that movie, because I have been now to I've even been to different countries. I've done a lot of things after I had moved on or committed to that. And I can't just go back into a very mundane and, I feel like it's just a fake world for me, where everything is just like, nope, status quo, nope, like there's walls everywhere you turn.
Yeah, you was obviously wearing a mask.
Yeah,
as
sure.
well. You obviously saw the bigger picture. You saw that your mum's had that as well. You then became a mum and was like, hold on a minute, I don't want to do the same and pass that down to these beautiful children that I've got as well. I want to change the narrative, the status quo that you're saying. This is really, really powerful stuff that you're sharing. When did this gap start to appear for things such as yoga? Where was the first piece for you where you was like, oh, I might give that a try, or that opportunity?
Yeah, the yoga came to me, and it was mostly because of my body. My body has been a big driving force, which I do think is interesting in connection with autoimmune. So I was pregnant with my second child. I was 22 years old, and all of a sudden I couldn't move very well. I was at the end of my pregnancy and I was having really bad hip pains. My fingers, interestingly enough, my middle finger on both hands and the second toe, it became very stiff. But by the end of my pregnancy, I couldn't even bend those middle fingers anymore. Essentially, I was just flipping the world off everywhere I went. So even that is on a symbolic sort of level. It was starting to tell me I wasn't very happy with what was going on, but I didn't want to believe it then. One of my rebellious sisters, my only rebellious sister who didn't get married and didn't have children in her 20s, was in college. And she came back and she's like, you know what? I tried this thing as an elective at class or in college, and it's called yoga. You should try it. Maybe that'll help with all that pain, because there was no good medicines to give a pregnant mother or a mother who wanted to be breastfeeding her baby. There's just nothing out there. Yeah. So I tried it. I did it once a week. It was senior yoga. I was 22. So I was the baby in the class.
Yeah.
But I had to. I was really in a crippled sort of state. But in 9 months, no medical intervention, and in 9 months, all of it was gone. And they were amazed. They did tell me it was rheumatoid arthritis when they were looking at it. But from the movement, and I think more than that, from the slowing down, learning how to slow down, learning how to take my awareness to my body and soften those things and bring sweetness and comfort and all of those things into my life, that's what transformed that in my world.
Yeah. I love that, by the way, what you shared. The fact that your sister gave you that seed. Maybe you should just give this a go. In those moments of despair, those moments of feeling really, that pain is just so, it's like you just can't see a way out sort of thing. And then boom, there is that opportunity like in front of you to give it a go. The fact that, again, you'd got told it could be rheumatoid arthritis, very easy to just sort of, the violins come out and, be very much like, all right, that's it. I'll give me the medicine. Let me just take the, pill, whatever it is. But you managed to go within and sort of reduce it in a natural, holistic way. So just sort of backtracking then with the sort of, the alcohol, being in this mask and this life that you knew that was, I guess, in a way trapping you, not allowing you to be your true self. Do you think a lot of that led to this pain? Do you feel like a lot of that, did you drink a lot? Was it a big thing in your day to day?
Not every day, but certainly, any sort of social experience. So again, if we were going out on a business meeting or if we were just going to go and experience a weekend of letdown or whatever, or even in our home where other people would come over so that the children could be participating, alcohol was always involved. There was no deep connections without that kind of thing, which is funny that I say deep connections because it wasn't deep then either, but I wasn't aware of that. At that time, I felt like, well, we're just letting go and then, we can be more comfortable. I just had no clue. And I feel like that's probably because alcohol was something that the adults did when I was a child. It was just the thing that you did. It was a part of social gatherings. If somebody got married, if somebody died, alcohol was a part of that.
Yeah.
And so then that was something that I had just adopted. And so, like I said, I don't think it was that much. But when I stopped, that's when I realized, even drinking alcohol every weekend or getting drunk on the weekends.
Yeah.
There's a lot of impact on that. And especially because that may have been the only special time that I had with my husband, and I was intoxicated the entire time. If, how deep are those connections?
Sure.
So the question too was, do I think that there were things? And yes, I think that that's what I was using, is alcohol, to swallow down all of the discontent that I had in the lack of emotional connection.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I appreciate that very honest, open share, because I'm pretty certain, that people who listen and watch even in this moment can probably nod their head, but yeah, I've numbed the pain exactly the same. It's been a bit of a coping thing. It's been a bit of a blur. Life's a blur. It's blurring out that real stuff, like you said, the real emotional connection. Don't know where your emotions are sometimes. You lose that control when you're using a substance and a coping mechanism such as alcohol. People kind of go to the drugs. So what was the first sort of realization for you, Shivani, when you'd come off the alcohol and you started going on this journey, this healing journey, to know and feel that this is the right thing? This is where I should be going.
Yeah, I feel like, again, I'm not really sure what triggered the don't drink. It was just inside me.
Yeah.
And after that, I decided I wanted to run a marathon. And I think that was a big start to all of this, because first everybody's like, you can't do that. That's, you're not capable of that. I was like, whoa, wait a second. How do so many people not know me? And why is the first reaction, you can't do that? So part of my interest in running the marathon is that I had a traumatic event in my youth, and I tried to run to get away from it. And I feel like, and again, so this kind of ties back into the spirituality. At that time, I felt like when I was trying to run away, that something actually grabbed me by my feet and pulled me down, and I smacked, just fell flat on my face in the fields. And so at the time when I was like, okay, I'm done drinking alcohol, I'm done covering all of this up, I began having the desire to see, well, could I do it now? Could I run away from that? Could I run 26.2 miles, which would have been enough to get me out of the physical space that I was in at that time? And it took a lot of effort, but 9 months. I love this 9 months thing because, being a mother, it always seems like that's the amount of time it takes me to transition from one thing to the next. 9 months later, I ran that. But what I discovered while running that was something that anybody who runs knows. About 10 miles, I would get a runner's high. And I was starting to experience myself as deeply connected with everything else while I was running. I would touch trees as I was running by them and feel the electromagnetic resonance that was going through my body. Like all of these things that kind of woo-woo or spiritual things that I was like, that's ridiculous. All of a sudden I was feeling those things. And I think that that's what ultimately led me to finding a meditation practice, something that I could do that without having to run 10 miles every day to have that kind of experience.
Yeah, so that's amazing. So the runner's high is I mean, I completely relate to that because I do running myself, more like the ultra stuff now. But I started out with the 2K, 3K, 5K, and you kind of build it up. So what has meditation taught you as a lesson in terms of creating that space in your day to day?
Well, meditation has taught me a lot of things, but I think the most integral to what we're talking about here is first the ability to observe or witness my own emotional experience, what is going on in my inner world, the thoughts that are going on. And then, like I said, because I was a part of a connection, there was a specific practice that I was using that allowed me to begin practicing communicating those deeper emotions. So there, I guess saying it in another way is, through meditation, I got to learn myself, and then I got to learn what it was like to have real, deep conversations with other people in my life. And then through that, also begin to apply it to relationships that didn't have that. So I got to have experiences where I got real with my mother, and we had deep connections that were very challenging for her at first. And then, through me understanding what I needed to do to stay in that connection with the still whole part inside of myself, then was able to lead to greater connections. And that absolutely, hands down, happened with my children. that one of the things that we often do is maintain our poor behaviors. We have to build ourselves up. We have to justify those sorts of things. And in that, we're plastering over the hurt and the disconnect that happens even when we're making choices that make us healthier and better. So meditation allowed me to embrace all of those experiences and then be able to sit with those that I love. And even if they had hard feelings towards me, even if they had pain, which obviously with my children, there was some level of that they loved me, but then I had stepped away. Their dad raised them during that time because that's the way that it worked out. It was also a way that he was going to control and keep me coming back. So to be able to really get real with my children, and that's been great. They're all young adults now, and having that ability to face those things outright is something that also has helped them move forward in creating their lives, the lives that they want to live, that are satisfying for them, not what I want them to do or what society tells them to do, but what is enlivening to their own beings.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think obviously for you, you can tell that. I mean, obviously when you share it like that, obviously you can tell you've been on this deep journey. There's been a lot of shifts. There's been a lot of things, aha, wake up, light bulb moments that then again you connected with yourself first, and then started picking out the areas of your life that you're like, right, I want to have that depth to it now. I want those people in my circle, so that I can be the best person for them as well as it be reciprocated. Now, if there's somebody sort of here tuning in that are maybe they've tried meditation, maybe they haven't really given it a sort of go. Just from your experience, if you can remember, I mean, obviously I know it might have been some time ago now, but what was that first sort of moment when you started meditation? Because obviously you'd slowed down. Was this sort of like that moment I can remember that was the biggest change that started everything off for me?
Yeah, so when I learned it, it was taught in a weekend format. And so the first night was only 3 hours, and they just taught you the basic technique. They are very mechanical in the way that they're used, the practice that I've learned. So they taught me that. And I remember they kind of were doing some talking back and forth while they were teaching you how to do this. But within like less than 5 minutes, I was having the same peak experience that I was having when I was running. And that took me 10 miles. So not everybody, because I have taught yoga and not everybody has that experience, but I did. And so for me, that was one of the things that really cemented it into my world. I was looking for something. I knew I was looking for something. And then this one flipped that switch. But what I have known and experienced as, like I said, as teaching it and watching individuals come into this environment is that, if it was a 3-day, which is typically the way I taught it too, a 3-day workshop where they're learning the techniques, that it becomes so impactful on the physiology that by Sunday, so if somebody comes in, you can see the stress on their face and, maybe in their physiology, but by Saturday, it's a little softer. By Sunday, just they begin to glow, and they can't necessarily see it. Some people don't see it, but then maybe their family starts to notice that, wow, something's going on. Or in my case, the thing that I found was that my children noticed, and they noticed right after that weekend. And then they would ask me, they'd start asking me, Mom, did you get your meditation in?
Oh, wow.
And the reason they were asking that is because I was a redhead. I was a little fiery in my attitude sometimes. And that was the thing that they noticed right away is that when I was regular in my practice, I wasn't as angry. I wasn't as intense. And so they were always supporting and pushing like, yep, you got to do that one.
No, yeah, that's a really good thing. And obviously you've mentioned this 3-day workshop, obviously this practice, obviously there must be a methodology behind it. So for you, what brought you to that sort of space and moment to go, right, I'm going to go for this 3-day workshop? Because I'll be straight with you. I'm sitting thinking, I don't know whether I could even do that right now. I mean, I struggle to sit still for like 10 minutes, right? Yeah, just from your own sort of journey with that.
Yeah. So again, it was my same sister that introduced me to yoga. She gave me some CD because, this is a couple decades ago. So I put the CD in, and I was, like I said, I had stopped drinking alcohol. I was looking for something. I was really, really looking. And when she gave that to me, I stuck it in. I was listening to it, and I remember thinking, yes, this is amazing. Yes, I want this. And then right as soon as it was over, I turned it off the CD, or, ejected the CD, put it back in its case. I called her and I was like, don't ever ask me ever, ever, ever again to do anything like this with you. I am done. And I knew the reason is because I knew that it was going to change. With the yoga, I was already starting to feel a deeper connection with my inner world. And then this was promising quite a bit more. And I knew that was going to be the kind of nail in the coffin of the life that I was leaving. And I didn't realize that until that moment. So yeah, I hadn't even thought though a lot about what it was going to require of me physically. And luckily in this weekend workshop, there's like they teach you to use it, and then they talk to you about like the intellectual information or the intellectual understanding, and then you use it. And then, so there's like this back and forth, and it made it very easy, and also showed me how easy it is to say, sit for 20 minutes twice a day using these mechanical sort of techniques.
Yeah, I mean, plugging your sister in again, eh? I mean, that's amazing. That sometimes it takes that other external person in those moments of, like you say, pain. A door can be opened. How old was you, Shivani, at that moment when all this started changing?
So it probably started when I was 25, but I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't begin the meditation practice until I believe I was 29 when I learned it. So it had taken another 4 years for all of that to kind of change and like the receptivity to that to open inside of me.
Yeah, what scared you the most through all of this?
Well, I think the thing that scared me the most was that the things that my ex-husband was saying, that, you might just be severely depressed. You do come from a family where depression and suicide is a part of all of that. So maybe you're just going through something. And so there was some concern that maybe I'm losing it. Maybe, all of this is what my ex was saying. And I think that that's funny because at that time, especially when I was really ready to dive into this, I went for a 6-month program where that's all I did for 6 months is just meditate. But as I was approaching that, my ex-husband was very, very nervous. And his mother was like, you got to make sure there's nothing going on, because if you let her go and then something happened, you're going to feel horrible about it. So we went to a couple different counseling sessions with a man, which I thought was interesting because part of me was pretty angry at the male figure in my life at that particular time. So, but what I found was interesting is that in those conversations, the therapist at the time really wanted me to see, like, do you see that he does not care what you're going through right now? He does not want to change anything for you. Can you see this? And so I feel like that was also the thing that was very beneficial for me. Again, it was an important thing that I needed to do for myself, especially I had just had a daughter, and that one I was like, I cannot be the role model for this, that she would live a life or the rest of her life with somebody who does not value her, does not see her, doesn't care if she's having emotional discontent or emotional dissonance, any of that stuff, that, she deserves to have somebody who loves and supports her. And interesting, her father was able to do that for her and not so much for me. It's funny what kids can do for parents, huh?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we have a young daughter, and it's just how they can change you and your moods and the way that you are as a person. Yeah, they're powerful. That is for sure. It's like, why did that happen to me? Well, no. So for you, obviously, look, you'd gone on this deep journey. Obviously, it's very clear as well that you've had people that have given you a perspective, guided you in some format. That obviously really had a positive impact on your life. You found your voice, you sort of stepped up. What happened then? Sort of when Shivani become this, like, I'm not numbing anymore. I've got this emotional regulation. I feel like I'm back in tune with that. Yeah, what happened then? What was the next move?
Well, I feel like that's where I started getting to a place where I wanted to inspire others, that if anybody was sitting inside their inner world and feeling the way that I had felt, that I wanted to inspire others that there is the possibility and there is the potential to have what they're aching for inside of themselves. And I do feel like that was part of the desire to get my own business going, getting that started, getting those wheels turning, because, there needs to be some form of energy exchange and all of those things. I needed money to eat. I couldn't just
Sure.
go off of good nature. I think hundreds of years ago, that probably would have been the approach that I took, that it was just, the shaman sort of lifestyle, or the yogi sort of lifestyle, where I just went around and loved people and helped open up those doors. But we don't live in that world that supports that kind of thing. So the idea of getting a business going and putting myself in a position where I could support others became the forefront of my mind and in my world, which again, it was an interesting thing for me because I did have a lot of judgments around money from the experience with my ex-husband.
Yeah, it seems as though you've had a lot of resistance, your choice in what you feel is sort of aligned to you, even when you did the marathon thing. So I'd love to know, how did you move past that? Because a lot of people, mentally as well, physically, would probably break down, probably go, actually, do you know what? Yeah, you're right. I'll just stay. Yeah, probably it's not meant for me. But you kept moving forwards.
Yeah, I have to say that in that, the impetus to continue forward really did come from the responsibility. So I didn't do parenting the way that a lot of people idealize it, but I did feel very responsible for those three beings that I created. And I couldn't stay in this place where I was going to make compromises for myself, because I didn't want them to do that. And I didn't want them to be in a place where their only option was, it's not good enough, so I'll just end my own life. That was something that really ached inside of me. So I knew that to be that model, I needed to start settling into, if that's what I want them to be, then I have to model that. So then I have to face those parts inside of myself. And, and so again, they were the big motivation for that. Every time I felt like I wanted to give up, one or all of them would come into my awareness, or we would talk, and then that would be another one, like, yep, okay, well, I hurt and I don't want to, but I'm going to get up again.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I can tell there's a lot of fight in you as well. You're very strong as a woman as well, independent in quite many ways. The thing that I sort of would love to know, because most people in that moment in their life, if they were a mum, responsible for the children, they'd probably juggle 2 or 3 different jobs, right? I'll just go employed, I'll get a paycheck, just so that I know I've got a bit of security. You sort of went the other way. I want to build my dream. I want to build this passion of mine. What deep burning desire inside of you was like? Was you playing with it? Did you sort of nearly go like into employed roles, or were you just fully dialed in on this business?
Yeah, I feel like, so at first I wanted to go 100% in, and that was around the time when I did crash, because I was just pushing myself way too hard. Like, yes, I'm going to make this work. And then as my body began to give out on me, that's where I began to see that, if you need money, then there's all sorts of ways that you can come up with money in a creative way. You can be employed by somebody else. And so I did have my feet in both worlds, where I was doing both, or starting with that, like that took care of the basic need. And now making sure that there's enough time for me to give to the business interests, the things that really dial me in. And what I think is interesting in that is some of the things that I discovered then, I still do. Like, I don't really love to do a lot of physical exercise. So having a gym membership and going over and pumping weights and stuff, It's not going to happen. And one of the things that I discovered during that time is that I will do it if I get paid to do it. So I have a little part-time job that I maintain because it's my physical outlet. I love to go and do it. And I lift heavy boxes and move stuff. And, it's great for my overall physiology. And they're paying me to do it. So I do it a couple nights a week, and, it's great. So those are the things that I've come across, or that I've learned, is sometimes when we hold such rigid ideas about how and what, then we miss out on all of the ways in which our unique personality can thrive by utilizing all of these tools and resources in our world and around us. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing. Another thing that I had begun at that time was helping at a crisis center. So,
oh, wow,
that was really enlivening to me, because I was able to be with those individuals that were coming, whether they were using drugs or whether they were in a place of they're not sure they want to live, and maybe they're suicidal, maybe they're homicidal. All of these things, it seems like it would be such a scary environment. But what I found is how much I loved getting to be there and support those individuals, because every single one of them had a connection to what it was that I was talking about. There was something inside of them, something deep inside of them that was asking to be seen, to be heard, and mostly to be valued. And that was one thing that most of the individuals that come into that environment, they just never had anybody who could see them and value them for the unique and beautiful ray of light that they are. I mean, everybody has a beautiful story.
Yeah.
And so some were transformed. Most of them, even if they're not at a place where they're quite ready to do that, most of them are always sharing how grateful they are just to have somebody who would stop. A lot of the employees there are busy. They're wore out themselves. They're in a place where they haven't engaged in their own, so they're just going through the motions. And to have somebody in that world or in that realm that has taken care of herself and has implemented those things, then they can see that there's a possibility that they could begin to jump on that journey themselves.
Yeah, that's really good. Nice as well. Well said. The possibility of change, the fact that you had helped them. Again, talking about space, I think space is quite a big word throughout this sort of episode. That they can be heard, but mainly, like you say, valued. Through that experience of that, what was the best feedback that you received?
I think one of my favorites is that there was a young man. He's probably like 10 years younger than me. And he was an extremely creative individual. In fact, he was doing so well living on the streets and making money off the internet that he could buy all of his drugs and all of that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's just very creative, amazing.
Yeah, clever as well, yeah.
So one of the things that in our last interaction, because I had seen him over a couple weeks, he came in and he was sharing about that his body was starting to give out on him because the drugs were just taking their toll. So he was going to go through a year-long rehab process. And even in our conversation, he's already like, but I'm going to go somewhere and I don't know where the drugs are. I'm like, darling, that's the point, that you don't know where those things are and that you're going to go through. And he's like, I'm just no good at this. And, it makes me feel about like school, like when I used to have to go to school. And just like naturally out of me, I said, oh, was that because you were never valued for the incredible intellect that you have and the amazing creativity that you have? He loves to color and he's beautiful. I mean, he does beautiful things. And right then, you could just see every part of him. He was like, whoa. And he said in response to me that really touched him. But he said, it's more than that. Every time I talk to you, you always have something to say that just touches my heart and transforms my world. And so that was a very touching moment because, like I said, it was so tangible and it was on accident. I didn't mean to do anything. It was just that I see him that way. And so when I gave him that it was just, like it was such an impact because nobody's seen him that way. Nobody will draw that forward. And he knows it to be true about himself.
I think I love that. That's amazing as well. I mean, what a feeling for you, but also him, the fact that, like you said, someone's valued him, someone sort of heard him without him necessarily saying much. You've understood him on a deeper level and you've reflected probably what he's not seeing at the moment. And now he's seen something, wow, sort of, whoa. And I guess for you then that was a real big sort of confidence boost in this, like say, this passion that you've pursued with being this coach, the health coach, and helping people on their journey. So tell us a little bit about that transition, because obviously I did say right at the beginning of the episode that you was going all in on this business. I know you pushed your body. If you could just give us a bit of a sort of, so the audience can understand that sort of moment where you had no choice but to pull back and surrender because of that.
Yeah. So I had begun creating a yoga studio in my very small town. It's somewhat closed-minded in what they would term the Bible Belt. So there's a lot of hesitation, even though yoga is starting to open up here. But the way that I do yoga is it's not that there's anything wrong with any of that, but I don't do a lot of the exercise or like gymnastics sort of yoga. Mine is more about getting in touch with yourself, what is going on deeper, and listening inside yourself. And that makes people a little nervous around where I'm at. So I was getting that one going and noticing that all of the challenges around me, that there were a lot of ideas about that and that it was going to start taking longer. So I had borrowed a lot of money to make this happen and was running into various different individuals, a few who ended up taking advantage of me and, thousands of dollars as well. And then there is that aspect of me that is just like, once I tell myself I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And what I got to see was all of that pushing was making everything else bubble up inside of me. Like I said, I had stress around money and what it meant to make money. And I also realized that some of the impetus or the desire to get this business going and have it be really successful, have all this money coming back my way, was because I was starting to be afraid of losing my now current husband, who is extremely wonderful at supporting my emotional world and my independence and my desires to do whatever it is that satisfies and makes me whole. Well, he's a little older than me, and I started having this feeling inside of me. So there was fear that was going, like, just radiating through my world. And I had spent many years in meditation. I knew these things, but I kept being like, no, I can just, I'll just focus. I can dial it in. I can make this happen, But the reality was that I was in a state of fight or flight, and I continued to just push and push through that state. And all of that is what inflamed got the health condition to where it flared up in a way that I could not manage it. I had been managing it without doctors for nearly 15 years because they had upset me in the way that they approached it at that time. So I was just adamant that I would be able to figure it out on my own. And all of that intense energy where I was just going to push myself through this, my body said, no, you're not. We're going to start facing all of these things. And if you want the end results, if you want to become a successful entrepreneur, we will take this in a way that works for my body, for my physiology. So I had to stop. I had to close the studio in my hometown, which in the long run is best. It really wasn't the best environment for me. I do much better when I meet individuals online and have those connections with them, because you can't force a square peg in a round hole when somebody isn't ready yet, when that their thing yet. It doesn't mean that it isn't, because the more that I do it, the more that now I have people in my community who are interested. But trying to make those things, or any trying, I guess is the best way to say it. That was the thing that my body was instrumental in showing me, that there is no trying. We're going to find a perfect balance where things flow naturally and beautifully. And so that was the result. I was kind of a little bit disappointed because I was in the midst of getting my bachelor's and then already enrolled in my master's program for Ayurveda, which is the sister science of yoga. It's the science of life. It's 5,000 years old, and it's all about how to bring balance to the physiology. So I'm studying all this, and here I am now, not able to use it to solve my problem. And that was another thing that made me panic and freak out, because I'm investing all this money about, this, and it's not the solution. Or that's what I thought at the time. So I went and I did get over some of my judgments of Western medicine, found some really great people to support me, and they were able to use some medications to help bring my body back into a state of equilibrium. So I wasn't in 100% fight or flight at all times. That then allowed me to begin to slowly, one step at a time. It's one of the things that is really, really important to me when I work with individuals now. Change your physiology, your mind can't really handle endless change. That's what makes our the fight or flight, the sympathetic nervous system, flare up. So taking these one really well-planned step at a time is something that then your body can get used to, a new way of being and functioning, and then you can add more and more and more. So I am now at a place where I have come to balance, and I'm using all of the preventative measures that I've learned in Ayurveda, and I no longer need the medications to help manage Crohn's anymore.
Wow. The fact that, so I know you'd said it was sort of to sacrifice it, to sort of do it temporarily, but you still worked in more of a natural, holistic way to sort of come out the other side. So I just love to know from your view, because listening to you now, it's really like refreshing as well and powerful. But, hearing your backstory of, I guess, always coming against resistance, it's as though you had this freedom of like, right, done the meditation, going into this yoga. Yes, this is it, my baby. I'm pursuing it. Wow, for the first time in my life, I'm doing something I truly, truly, truly want to do. Bang. Crohn's hits, body's going, no way, not happening. What got you through that period? Because in my mind, and probably people are here going, I'd have just gone, maybe I'm just not cut out to do this. Maybe I've just got to be, I don't know, just doing something different. I'd just love to know about.
Yeah, well, I definitely had all of those thoughts. That was definitely a part of my experience. And then, I guess the best way to say it is I just surrendered. At that time when things were the worst, I ended up being bedridden for 3 months. I just couldn't. There was nothing that I could do. And luckily I had a great support system. Like I said, my husband did great taking care of me and nurturing me through that, and also allowing me to have my entire experience, all of those pieces. There were times when I can't get myself through this. If this is the way my life is going to be, then I'm not sure that I want to be alive. I was losing control of my bowels, and way was the worst of it, and that was humiliating. I was only, in my early 40s, and I can't spend the rest of my life this way. So there was a lot of deep soul searching in all of that. And I remember that there was a time, I do think one of my kiddos came in at that moment, that I was laying in bed. It was around a birthday time or something like that. And so I was, okay, I've got to connect with him. I've got to let him know that I love him. And at that time, we just started having a conversation, and I'm in my bed. I can hardly get myself up out of this bed. And I don't remember what was said, but in it, that was it. It was the spark that said, nope, you have to get up. There's no way that you can leave your physical existence and have that impact on your children. You must get up and you must do this. So once again, I did it again. I got up out of that bed and, like I said, began slowly integrating the things, letting go of all of the idealism that has been one of the biggest stumbling blocks in my life. Is, there's some sort of idea, but every single time, if I can just let go and be receptive, like, this is my ideal, and I'm going to put it out there. That's my ideal. But what's here? What is present, available to me? What are the resources that I can engage in? Who are the people that are interested? Like I said, that was one of the things as I was picking myself up when I worked at the crisis center. That was something that helped to remind myself and validate myself that I do have things to offer other individuals, and that just because there was a few $1,000s down the drain, sure, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. There's people out here that have nothing, and I can see in them how easily they could just pick up if they, or when they get behind it. And then there were many people that were showing me that they could do that too. So if they could do it, then I could certainly just pick myself up again. And so that's what I did, is one foot after the next towards my own self-care, making sure that I have those in, and playing with the world and in a creative way. Like I said, discovering, okay, well, physical exercise is really, really important. And I'll do my morning chill walk with my husband, but I don't want to go to the gym. So I found a way to integrate that in a way that works for me. And then diet, of psychological hangups around diet. And so even that was something that I found a buddy that I could bounce those kind of conversations off of and be real with, and go into, like, I don't want to, well, I get it, I don't want to either, and have those real life conversations. That was one of the things as well, that when you started this, that has been something that's become more and more important to me as a result of all of this build up and crash, is the interpersonal relationships that I've found. I found those early on. That's what led me through that, the big change from housewife to kind of monk style lifestyle and then there's more individuals that are now a part of my life, helping to expand my desire to have a successful business, that then I can use that money to touch more lives and inspire more people to live healthfully. That those involves having deep connections with various individuals who just presented themselves to me at the right time,
Yeah, I mean, I can see, well, you're a proud mother, obviously. I mean, I'm sure you're really proud, right?
Yes, of course, hands down.
Hands down. The fact that you've not given up on yourself, but you've not given up on your family. You've met some people along the way that have obviously helped you connect with yourself. You've found your path. You're living in that space, and you're impacting others. And I know, because you're really in line with what you want to do. I mean, even the conditions, the adversity, the resistance, and the way that you've sort of pushed through, I'm admiring that. And I really am, because, I sit here a lot on this podcast and I'm in shock, because I'm sort of like, what would I do in that situation? Not trying to compare, but just the fact that it's so hard, right? But like what you just said there, you lost thousands and thousands of dollars, not pounds, sorry. And, people sort of took advantage, but you still got up and you've still created this life that you're proud of. And I think that's really important for the guys listening to, just to sort of like soak up. Like life can be very hard, right? I mean, there can be things that get in the way, but you can still, in your world, and the way that you sort of put out to the world is, look, you one step at a time, slowing down, you can still move forwards.
Yeah, and I feel like what you were talking about, just get up. But that was the main thing that I had to learn is I can't get up fighting. I can't get up swinging, because my body won't let me do that anymore. So how do you get up in a way that is balancing and nourishing to all aspects of who you are, that naturally results in just an inner joy, an inner contentment, and then it becomes much, much easier. I always love to tell people that my story is, I don't know, what my karma is, but I was certainly one who's just from the get-go, just like one thing after the next. So some of that is how it's inherent in me. I've had to get up. And the more that I get up, the easier it is for me to see that you just do, once you do, get up, lick your wounds. If I was a cat and something traumatic happened, what do? They turn around a couple of times, lick themselves, and then it's a whole new world. And that is also what, through the spiritual practice, through meditation, that it helped me to let go of a lot of the old things, so that it is easier to get up, and you don't have to get up swinging and fighting and, hurting yourself and maybe others on the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in your situation, definitely there was no sort of aggression, or it was just finding peace in that getting back up. I think it's absolutely brilliant the way that you've continued to move forwards in your life. Just, I mean, because we are getting towards the end of this episode. Just looking back now in your life, what would you say that you're most proud of?
Geez, there's a lot of things, but I would say that the thing that has been the biggest drive inside of me, and then the reality that I've actually followed that, was that I'm most proud for finding and living my authentic self, so that I can model that for my children. That has been the biggest drive inside of me, and that I'm doing it, and I continue to do it.
So becoming a dad back in 2023 has definitely been challenging at times. Being on this entrepreneur journey, having multiple businesses, it can be tough, but it doesn't have to be. One way to kick off your personal development journey is nestled in the heart of Montenegro. Syro Boca Place offers more than just a lifestyle experience. It is the ultimate active lifestyle hotel. Whether you're looking to rejuvenate in their state-of-the-art recovery lab, take a dip in the 25-meter half Olympic pool with a retractable roof, or explore the stunning trails of Boca Bay, there is something for everyone. And if you're like me, who wants to stay active and experience what is on offer. So if you're looking to elevate your travel experience and feel better than when you arrived, to get in on the experience, head over to www.sirohotels.com.
Amazing. That masks off. You're living your true self, your life that you wanted. But no, that really sort of pieces what you've spoken about today. So look, this is a question though I do love to ask every single guest at the end of the episode. It's sort of your meaning. It's your perspective. What does mastering your life mean to you, Shivani?
Yeah, so for me, that is something that is ever changing and ever growing, meaning that I will never master it totally, because each time that I hit those plateaus, that there will be more. And for me, settling into that realization and embracing it, that has been the biggest thing about mastering my life, is the reality that I will forever be growing and changing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm pretty much the same. And when anybody says that it's sort of continually evolving, it's a moving thing, you never truly master anything, that's sort of where I'm at. So I couldn't agree with you more, and you put it together really well as well. So I might even steal that. So just if people who are listening in to this episode or watching it back want to connect with you and find out more about what you do, and maybe just want to send you a message or join your community, where can people find you?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's www.exploreyogahealth.
Amazing. Well, look, that'll go in anyway on the show notes, so people can click and go to it if they could, connect with you through there. But final thing from me, obviously this is the first time we've officially met. It was a great conversation, and I really appreciate the raw and honesty of that moment in your life that has changed you forever.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Luke. This was a lot of fun, and I love what you're presenting here, and look forward to also sharing your podcast with all of my listeners and my community.
Oh, thank you so much. And I'm excited for this one to come out as well.